Games Workshop just changed 40K again.
Spiky bits.
Welcome back, Hobby Maniacs. I'm Baer from SpikyBits.com, and we are going to unbox and build the new units from Blood of the Phoenix, the newest starter set from Games Workshop for Warhammer 40K. It's October 2019, and there's new Eldar. So 25 miniatures coming in this box for $230. Yeah, that's a lot. A lot of people have had a lot of things to say about it online. It comes with the new miniatures, Drazar, Janzar, new Banshees, new Incubi, and some older models here. Interestingly enough, the Falcon and the Wave Serpent are, well, they're pretty much just as old as the model that Janzar replaced from the 90s, not to mention Drazar, I think, came out in the late 90s as well. The old one, not the new one, not the new one. And then, of course, we've got these models, the rest of the Dark Eldar for this force in Blood of the Phoenix that were made back in November of 2011. So these guys are going on 8 years old this year, believe it or not. We've unboxed these. We didn't unbox these because we were making videos back in the 90s, but it is what it is right there. So like I said, this box, $230. You can always get it for less online from Miniature Market or Dice Head Games, or of course, pick it up at your local store this weekend. We're, of course, going to do a value breakdown on this, but real quick, I wanted to show you the contents. Now, it's kind of weird, like, the box is big, and it's not a heavy box like we've seen in the past with, you know, like, I don't know, what is it, Kill Team or Necromunda or something like that. It's just your normal cardboard box, but it's a bigger sized one, and we've seen starters come like this before. But when you open up the box, and I tried to replace it as best I could because I've already looked at it and stuff and looked at the books and everything, but it's very loosey-goosey packed in here, and there's probably two reasons for that. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, it doesn't have that out-of-box experience, that Ubi feel that we've seen in the past. Like, oh man, this is cool, it's all packed in nice and neat, it's really cool, it's easy to get in here and see everything. No, it's not really like that. And it might be because these sprues are so old and were designed by hand way back in the day, not the computerized design and boom, everything's like, look at all these sprues compared to this. Like, this was laid out, you know, I don't even know how they did stuff back in the day. I really don't. I don't even know. But so there's a little difference here, and there's a lot kind of I guess you could say wasted space. But once you dig through all of this, and we're going to show you all the new sprues, of course. We're not going to show you to focus on any of the older stuff here. But once you dig through all this and pull out all the models, then you kind of get to the little insert that's just kind of like haphazardly in here. And of course, it's color on the bottom, so it probably won't get dug into. So you can have a little poster for like your wall or whatever. And then you get in here to the Blood of the Phoenix manual, your little starter rules, little 8-page fold out. And I haven't checked these to see if anything's been updated, but for the most part, I don't think this is a new printing, because the only thing that's really changed is some of the universal stratagems and like the rule of 3 and things like that, and not necessarily it's more match play stuff. So this is kind of like not just match play, this is just kind of general rules. And then the 40-page Blood of the Phoenix little campaign book. And we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but you know, it kind of tells the story of what's going on in here. It also has the rules and the data sheets for all the units that are in here, including Janzar and things. There's the Banshees, and then it's going to have the points and some, you know, narrative battle plans and things in the back here, Echoes of War missions, and then the points. So that's pretty much everything that's in here. So it's like a little mini kind of soft cover campaign book type thing, and then everything else is just kind of thrown in here. Nothing in bags. It's just kind of boom, here it is. Now I'm sure it's going to explain it all in here, but it's all just kind of in here. Let's take a second and talk about some of the values that are going to come in this box. Now, we did a big article over on Spiky Bits at some point last week when the actual retail price was announced, and we came up with some estimated values in here. And here you can see the what is it? This is the kind of the picture there from the back of the box, and then we kind of go into the estimated values. And on the Eldar side, you can kind of see right here, we estimated the Banshees at $50 because they're currently $41 in fine cast. Falcon already is at $55. New Janzar we figured at $40, and we saw the new Marine characters were at $40. for the Imperial Fist and Salamanders this weekend on pre-order, so that's probably accurate-ish. And then the Viper is at $35. And then the Dark Eldar side of things, you've got the new Incubi, and we imagine they'll be about $50 as well, because they're $41.25, and let's face it, everything has pretty much went up this year. The Venom at $35, the Scourges at $30. The new Drazar, we also put him at $40. It's possible they're $35, but we're just trying to get the most bang out of the value dollar right here, just to spitball things. And then the Hellion Squad at $30. So the total MSRP estimated, of course, is $365. And then, you know, the box sells for $230. So you're looking at a net savings of $135. So going back and looking at past box sets, the past like big three in the past year or so, Wake the Dead, Tooth and Claw, and Wrath and Rapture, you can see here some kind of surprising comparisons. So these were all 160, the most recent being 160, the Tooth and Claw and the Wake the Dead were at 150. And you can see here what the savings goes for. So more on savings, a lot more when it comes to Tooth and Claw, for a lot less money, by about 60, 70, $80 actually. So it's kind of an interesting price point for Games Workshop to kind of put at. And the only thing I can figure is that maybe they're doing this because there's, I don't know, this is the only way to get the new models. And maybe they're putting a premium on getting the early access to these models, like we say in this post right here. We don't know. We don't know when these are going to come out. They could come out next month. They could come out 4 months from now. But either way, if you want to follow along with the Psychic Awakening storyline and things like that, and recreate the battles, and, you know, go team Dark Eldar Incubi or Team Banshees, well, then you're going to need this box to get these models, and that's the only way to get it, of course, besides buying them from people that break down the boxes on eBay. I mean, I suppose, of course, you could still trade with your buddies or something like that, or split the box if you knew somebody who played Dark Eldar and you played Eldar, or vice versa. But long story short, I mean, how often is that going to happen right there? So it's, you know, it is what it is. We're just kind of giving you the facts. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of value on the dollar, on the hobby dollar, in this box set as compared to the last three or so that have come out recently. But let's take a look at the assemblies for these. So we got Janzar right here, and you can definitely see right off the bat that she is all sorts of crazy computer swooshes. But looking at this, it looks like her hair is actually 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces right here, but also helps balance and support the whole miniature into this little piece of terrain here on 40 millimeter, on her 40 millimeter base. She's got her Triskelion and her spear. Was that one? The Wailing Doom, the Song of Silence. I forget what they all are. No, one of those is the Avatar Power. Anyways, she doesn't look too bad, but it's going to be a very dynamic pose, and I'm always leery of assembling something like this without having it attached to a base. I like to build from the ground up, but that seems the complete opposite to the way they want you to build it. So we'll kind of see from there. As far as the Banshees go, it looks like the Exarch has 2 different options for the weapons right there, which kind of makes sense. You can go with the Mirror Swords or the Executioner. As far as assembly goes, it's a little bit more traditional with a little bit of slices on the legs, but you know, it is very, very dynamic poses right here. Let's see how many models they have. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 plus the Exarch. So they're all dynamic. It's not like the days of old where there was one and then you kind of had to turn it a little bit in the picture to kind of not make it look as obvious that there was only one pose right there, and a little piece of shrine scenery or something like that right there. And then fast forwarding to the Dark Eldar, you can see the Incubi. Oh, there's Drazar. So Drazar looks to be standard front and back. Now I don't like this, how his feet are part of the terrain right there, so if you want to put him on something else, it's going to make it a little hard. But it looks like his little swooshes and things, his little ribbons are separate right here. He's got a separate piece for the front of his legs, kind of like a Primaris Marine, very weird. And then his different arms are going to attach to form that dynamic come at me bro pose. He's got his back trophy racks, head, and the hair looks like it goes together separately, and that swooshes around the back of the trophy racks. And he attaches to the base with a little scenery piece as well. And then getting into the Incubi, it looks like there is 2 different ways to make them. You can make with the bow staff, the clavix, or the single double-handed weapon version right there. If you really want the... Oh, wait, no, it's clave and a clavex. I forget. Either way, you know what I'm saying. And then let's look at the poses here. So they look, again, more traditional with a little bit of slicing around the legs to make them that dynamic kind of look. But, you know, the heads are separate. The arms are separate for the most part. And it looks like they're all pretty dynamic. And then it gets into the venom and stuff like that. And things that we don't care about because we showed it to you before. And there's the colored guide. So let's jump into the new sprues and then put these bad boys together. So first up, we'll take a look at the new Incubi here, and you can see it's a 3-section sprue. Now we've kind of dissected this, you know, we've seen previews of this already, but it's going to come with 2 sets of heads, helmeted heads and unhelmeted heads right here. And one thing I didn't pick up on until, well, I saw the sprues here was this whole Alra, Father of the Scorpions little motif right here, because that is supposedly who Drazar actually may be inside his armor, the fallen phoenix himself. And of course that would mean that the Incubi were in some ways founded by him when he stormed one of the temples in Kamara, I suppose. But either way, who knows? It's nothing set in stone, right? Everything can be retconned at the last second and stuff. And then you got the 2 different versions of the weapons right there, and the double blades or the single blades. So very cool looking. We'll see how well these assemble. And then, of course, Drazar himself. Or is it Alra? Or is it the Fallen Phoenix? I don't know anymore. You can kind of see here that, again, very, very well detailed. Don't have options here, but just like we showed you, it's going to have the computer slices on the legs and different things here. The trophy rack looks really cool. It's got, looks to be a Farseer force shield bit right there, and there's a Rosarius on the other one, it looks like, right there. And of course he's got all his little rune stones or soul stones right here on the front that he's collected over the years. And there's the little runes, and on the back again another little Alra, Father of Scorpions, Fallen Phoenix motif on the base right there. So a little bit of Easter eggs, kind of reinforce things lore-wise perhaps for the Dark Eldar there. And then there's his head and the tassels of his hair. And then when it comes to Janzar, most of the sprue seems to be taken up by her hair, which again is like 4 different parts, but they look like they lock in pretty well. So I'm kind of hopeful there that this doesn't go sideways on us, but we'll find out here in a second. And lots of computer slices for a torso. So not so much on the posability or conversion possibility, but everything else seems to look pretty good. And then last but certainly not least is the 3 sprues of the Howling Banshees, which again look great. A lot of hair going on here, a lot of different head options. Of course, you've got the larger Exarch kind of heads and one Baer head? Yeah, one Baer head, so you can make that Ynnari version too if you want. And everything looks pretty dynamic to 2 different sets of weapons. I'm gonna actually go back and look to see, but I'm pretty sure you can assemble it with either. But now that I'm looking at it, I do want to do a quick count of the weapons and make sure you have both options here, because it actually might be that only the Exarch can switch out for the Executioner. I forget. So my instincts were right. It turns out that only the Exarchs can get those upgrade bits. So we assembled the Howling Banshee Exarch with the mirror blades. Now she could have the spear, the Executioner, or the longsword, whatever it actually is. I guess it's more of a longsword, but I think this is a little bit more dynamic. Although the other one looks good too. I like, you know, the ornamental hair, like you could see on that sprue, even with Janzar, there's just a lot of hair everywhere. And I think that will be one of the most dynamic kind of focal points for the models themselves. So you do a really good job with the hair. I think, you know, the rest of it will kind of take care of itself right there. And lots of flat surfaces on these blades, so you can do, you know, some metal glowy effects. If you want to do something like contrast paints or, you know, some airbrush fades, you definitely could. This is what one of our Sylvanist Revenants look like with an airbrush fade. And this is what it looks like with a contrast kind of swoosh. I think that was the Talzar blue over Wraithseer Bone, I want to say. So that would look really good for the Eldar as well if you wanted to do something like that. Now we didn't talk about, it's time to talk about some resizing. So I mentioned that G-Dub's kind of resizing Eldar. And, you know, as far as these models go, I don't have the fine cast ones. I do have this kind of Dire Avenger here. And if you start looking at it, you know, remember Dire Avengers are an aspect warrior as well. Maybe not as respected as the rest of them, but they are. You can kind of see that they're not really the same scale. Like these seem smaller over here. Not only do they seem smaller, but these are on 25mm bases, which were pretty much the standard up to this point. Now, both the Incubi and these Howling Banshees are on 28mm bases. And the reason that's important is because, you know, 5 years ago, we saw GW change the normal Space Marine size to 32mm. And everybody's like, oh, okay. And then, you know, 5 years later, fast forward to now, pretty much everything's on a bigger size base, except for Guard and except for Xenos. And now, well, that might have just changed too, because we originally saw this base in Warcry, and now it has made its way into the Xenos. And you could definitely say that potentially, you know, the Eldar are their biggest Xenos release, and now this might trickle down into a bunch of other stuff, including, you know, Tau, Orcs, who knows? I don't know. I'm just saying, hey, 5 years ago, bases changed, and they pretty much spread throughout most of the line on the Imperial side, except for Guard, and now we're seeing it on the Xenos side. So who knows? Just something to be definitely aware of right there. So not only does it look like the models are getting bigger, but the bases definitely got bigger. It's hard to see, but they're definitely bigger. And then we have the Clavex here with the Democlaves assembled up in their bow staff configuration, which looks really cool and very, very dynamic. You know, if you had told me there was no Drazar model and there was this guy, I'd be like, hey, that's Drazar. But it turns out he's actually smaller than Drazar, but he looks just as dope. As a matter of fact, they share a lot of similarities, to be quite honest. But man, just a very, very cool, very nicely posed model here. Very, very dynamic, and lots and lots and lots of parts, just like the Dark Eldar Warriors to paint. I mean, it's almost like he's a mini Archon as far as like detail and things go. And don't get me wrong, I love my old trenchcoat Incubi models from way, way, way back in the day. Shout out to Christopher Patrick. But these guys look good too. I'm not going to hate on it. All right, and then let's just jump into it. Here's a Drazar himself, and as you can see, he just looks... He just takes this pose and just cranks it up to I am all that is death, because this just is out of control. And obviously it's a little bit bigger, like where this guy was already probably a little bit bigger, you know, based on this Dire Avenger. Or I'm sure if you sized up some of the actually I don't remember what the Incubi looked like that weren't the metal ones. They don't exist to me. But this guy's already kind of a little bit bigger than the Dire Avengers. And then you got Drazar over here cranking it up to 11, and man, it just looks so dope. I mean, look at this pose. GW is knocking it out of the park when it comes to designs, posing, you know, putting all these little Easter eggs in here and things like, you know, the little Scorpion King on the back here, you know, Fallen Phoenix Lord and all that. Like, it just looks dope. Like, look at the posing, look at the tassels, look at the hair, the swooshes, the crispness of the sculpts. I can tell you right here that a lot of mold lines and everything, they were kind of there. Like, there was some on the little studs right here on his kind of thigh armor. There was some around here, but for the most part, they cleaned up well and the gaps are pretty well hid. GW is really, really good at hiding and designing their stuff very well in that regard. So I think they do a great job. Now, how does he compare to something like a Space Marine on a 32 mil? Because he's on a 40 mil. Well, there you go right there. So obviously more than a match for just your stock Space Marine, Tactical Marine, or Primaris Marine right there. So looking very fresh. And then how does he compare up to Janzar? Well, if you haven't seen it yet, they are basically dueling against each other with their posing, but separately look very dynamic and very, very cool as well. So there she is, and all the gaps and everything for the most part are hid. It looks like something happened right here. I used the smaller Tamiya extra thin cement glue, and there's a link to this in our little list of hobby supplies in the comments that you might want to check out, because for the most part it's pretty good, and it helped kind of seal up all that hair and everything. That all went together pretty good, to be quite honest. You can barely see the gap up in there, but it looks like I messed something up over here, so don't hold that against me, I swear. And then the tops and halves of this, right here, it attaches very similar to like the Custody staffs and different things. But man, she really goes together well. I was scared, but it went together very, very well. And then you can see her Triskelion up there holding it in a really, really dynamic, about to let it go kind of pose. her best Elsa yet. And there it is. I mean, it's very, very cool. Now, you know how I like to build from the bottom up, and they didn't really recommend that with this. I actually did that with Drazar. Once I got his torso and his legs assembled on, remember the legs, the bottom legs are part of this. Then I attached it to the base, because building all this stuff, and I didn't realize it actually clips in right there. See that gap? That actually clips together, and it's very, very sturdy after you pop it in the bottom and you kind of glue it to each other right there, and this glue point right here, and this actually contacts the base bottom. So once you get that in there, you can kind of fiddle around with the rest of this stuff, and it goes together very, very easily, just like Jans are. So great models, very, very dope looking. You know, of course, we're projecting these to be about $40 each when they are eventually released separately, but right now the only way to get them is in the Blood of the Phoenix starter box. And we already talked about pricing, we already talked about sizing, we've already talked about where you can get it: Miniature Market, dicehead.com, or your local game store. That's it. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can be the very first to like and comment on all our future videos.